Family business makes no sense. So let's talk about it.
Welcome to another episode of Family Business Makes No Sense, where we explore the basic concept that because family and business are such naturally opposing concepts, they will inevitably find themselves in conflict with each other, family versus business, at some time or perhaps at many times. And so we're looking at those causes of conflict with a view to preventing, avoiding, minimizing, managing, resolving if conflicts arise. Today we're talking about cause number 12, empathy, and explaining why empathy is a major component in conflicts that arise in family businesses, or more particularly, lack of empathy tends to contribute and then be an active element in conflicts that arise. Most importantly, we want to not only explain what the relevance of empathy is in the family business context, we also want to talk about how you can use empathy to avoid conflict, manage conflict, resolve conflict. I'm Jon Kenfield, the Family Business Solutionist, broadcasting from Melbourne in Australia. I've been working with many families in business for many years, and I've learnt that the vast majority of family conflicts are not about money primarily. They're about relationship breakdowns, broken promises, unmet expectations and the like, and therefore they respond a lot better once conflict has erupted to an empathic problem-solving approach than legal threats, emotional blackmail, rational arguments. So if we can understand better where empathy fits in the family business conflict universe, we're in with a much better chance of managing our empathy effectively to improve our lives and make sense of being in a family business. Because one thing we do know is that those minority of families that get it right, get it very, very right, and get great pleasure and satisfaction from working together as a family in business and still being able to enjoy each other's company in social environments. So if this is interesting to you, please sit back and let's get on with it. Let's start by understanding exactly what empathy is, because it does, like so many other things, mean different things to different people. Let's first go to the old Cherokee saying, before you judge a man, walk a mile in his moccasins, which we translate these days to walk a mile in their shoes. And the idea behind that is before you judge who and what a person is, understand where they're coming from, understand some of their history that has brought them to where they are now and is making them behave the way they're behaving towards you, because it may be that the person is not bad, it is just their circumstances are difficult, their history may be problematic, and if we can manage a way of navigating through all those overlays and to get to the core decent person underneath, we may be in a much better position to establish a strong relationship, repair a broken relationship, fix a conflicted situation. So empathy really is all about the ability to understand and relate to somebody else's feelings and perspectives, and in particular to respond to whatever the outcome of that analysis may be and wherever it takes you to. So let's break empathy down, because it's not something it's certainly something we can feel, but it's not something we can actually poke a finger at. It's not something that is tangible or concrete. So we need to understand what's going on. It's obviously emotional, it's an intellectual construct. Let's dive in. Essentially, it's considered there are 4 critical components that make up empathy. The first is cognition. That is simply being aware intellectually of what's going on with another person. So recognizing where they're coming from, or that at least they're coming from somewhere that we need to understand before we try to negotiate or deal with them. Second point is emotional availability. We need, and this is, I guess, is part of the idea of vulnerability gives you strength, which is something I'm still not sure I completely understand, but it does link in with the idea that you have to be emotionally available, emotionally open. If you are emotionally closed, then you're going to find it very difficult to connect with another person's emotional state, because you go closed, body language mirroring will say they'll go closed, and that'll happen, and what you do physically reflects what you're feeling emotionally, and nobody is going to have a strong rapport or connection, which means they're unable to meet anywhere to work out a solution to whatever's going on. So first of all, we have the cognition, the understanding, the appreciation of what's going on, and then there's emotional availability, which is I will engage at an emotional level as well as at an intellectual level with you to try and solve whatever problem it is you have, I have, we have, they have. The third element is compassion. If we basically couldn't give a shit about what happens to the other person, and we're not even that worried about what happens to us emotionally, because we'll get over it and we'll get a good tangible outcome, then we're not going to be able to establish much in the way of empathic connection, and we're certainly not going to be able to use empathy as a tool, lever, spotlight to help us work our way through whatever situation it is that is currently ailing us. So we need to have compassion, and compassion is a concern for other people because we want them to get a good outcome and to feel good about whatever outcome we get, just as much as we want a good outcome for ourselves. And in various of the other videos where we're talking about interest-based negotiation, you'll recognize that that is a common theme. If we are positional bargaining, we're just trying to beat other people down or arrive at a compromise we can all live with. But if we have compassion, it links into the concept of interest-based negotiation. If I can satisfy my interests by helping you to satisfy your interests, which then gets you want to satisfy my interest in return, everybody's a winner. And that can take some effort. Compromise won't get you there because that's agreeing down to the lowest common acceptable point of pain, and frankly that's bullshit. I tell families I don't want you to use the word compromise because it means that everyone gives up stuff to get a deal over the line, so nobody ends up with what they want. Nobody's happy. And families are forever. That doesn't last. Much better off to keep working until you're satisfied you've got the best deal you can get to by using your creativity to create the best deal you can make, even if circumstances have changed. All of this leverages off compassion, so it makes the point about the importance of empathy. And then the fourth element that we're talking about here with the empathic makeup is active response. And that suffuses everything we do. If you have a great meeting, but it doesn't result in an action plan that themselves result in actions, it's just been hot air. Everybody realistically has wasted their time if we need to get tangible outcomes. If all we need to do is build relationships, then a good meeting with plenty of respect and trust building and so on may be all we needed, and that might be great. But if we're in a family business context, we will assume that a meeting requires a decision to do something or not do something that's going to make things better than where we are now. Otherwise, why spend the effort? It's a bit like a trout in a stream. It's not going to go and move and take a fly or an insect or a bait fish or anything else if it's going to cost more effort to get that food than they're going to gain by capturing it. So if an animal the size of a pea gets that, we need to get that too. So we're talking about active response. Once we've got through the cognition, the emotional availability, the compassion, we then need to actively do something to complete our empathic response. And that's for the benefit of everybody. Now, where does a lack of empathy lead to conflict in a family business? Because that's essentially the thing we're exploring. Well, there are many, many reasons why lack of empathy will create conflict. Number one, if you demonstrate no or low empathy for somebody else, that will almost certainly feed into a corresponding response, which is going to reduce respect, which is going to reduce trust, which is going to reduce performance, is going to reduce satisfaction. Basically, the technical phrase is you have a schmozzle on your hands. Inability to be empathic will also have an impact on the quality of communications. Sure, you can talk about we'll make sure payroll is covered by 3 o'clock this afternoon. That doesn't require a lot of empathy, other than you're trying to make sure that your staff get paid. But if you're trying to motivate a team to complete a project on time within budget, then an empathic connection is going to help, because it means that you are aware of and you respond to the needs, the emotional needs and the emotional status of the team members, as opposed to simply ordering them to get something done or threatening they're going to lose their job if they don't get things done. So we've covered the idea of trust, I covered the idea of communication. Clearly, this is going to impact on behaviours, it's going to impact on morale, it's going to impact on decision making, and ultimately, one of the big ones is if we don't have an empathic environment, we're probably going to have major problems with succession, which is where I end up spending most of my time anyway, because a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy between successor, successee, and all the other stakeholders involved in the process will mean that the slightest speed bump turns into a brick wall, will mean that pace of one party is not matched by pace of other parties. It will mean that the fears, the insecurities, the needs of both the outgoing party and the incoming party are simply not dealt with properly. And the result of that is people lock into place. So I hope it's become fairly obvious that empathy is something we need to work on, and we need to have it in a family business, because a family business is a more complicated environment than an ordinary business. It's a more complicated environment than an ordinary family. We've thrown the two together, and that's going to create complexity to the power of 2, or perhaps much more. We need to be empathic to be able to deal with those issues. And we've all seen and virtually every family I work with, somebody who is aggrieved will claim that one of the parties against usually they have less power to control is a narcissist. And narcissists, by definition, are more concerned about themselves than they are about others, and therefore they tend to be low empathic individuals. So, if we agree that we need empathy, we need good empathic skills, and we need to use those empathic skills in our business, how do we improve them? Well, this goes back into some of the concepts put up in earlier videos where we were talking about mindset as a mechanism for increasing intelligence. And we talked about emotional intelligence leaning on the same concept to improve emotional intelligence. We talked about a bunch of activities that if you can get yourself into the learning mindset, if you can get yourself into the empathic mindset, will help you increase your empathic skills. Some of those things are techniques like active listening, which requires you to demonstrate an interest in the other person by reinforcing the fact that you can hear and you can understand and you can validate what it is they're trying to say. Obviously, there's a lot of empathy being utilised in that situation. Beyond listening, there's questioning. I say to people, by far the more powerful thing to do in most family business environments is ask lots of questions. Don't tell people what you think they need to hear. Don't solve the problem for them. Ask them lots of questions so the answer that you may have worked out yourself, or you may be on a journey with them, but the answer is revealed to them by your skilled questioning. You guide them towards answering their own questions or commenting on their own actions. And it is massively more powerful doing that than it is telling somebody what to do, telling them they're wrong, telling them it would work better if they do something some other way. I mean, just think about the last time that worked well within a family group. Families are pretty good at pushing back against being told what to do when they don't want to be told what to do. Emotional intelligence. Run the exercises to develop your emotional intelligence. Get yourself into that emotionally receptive, open, transparent, receiving and sending mindset, and you will grow your emotional intelligence and your emotional intelligence skills. You can actually set yourself up to do specific perspective-taking activities where you work consciously on developing an understanding of the perspectives of the other people across the table by doing things like spending a couple of minutes walking around the other side of the table and presenting the other person's arguments back to you, which forces you to get into their head to do that. And I don't know how many times I've seen people do that in a negotiation or a mediation or a family conflict workout, and you ask them to get over the other side of the table, or you ask them to sit in somebody else's chair. You might even ask them to put on somebody else's jacket or cap or something similar, and say, you now try and present their argument to you in a way that's going to make sense to you. And it doesn't take 60 seconds getting into this for the colour to leave the face, the penny to drop. All of a sudden, they have a totally different perspective on what's going on to the one that they put all their emotional investment into. So you can set up exercises to grow your empathic skills by doing some perspective-taking work. It goes without saying, you've got to be authentic, you've got to be genuine, you've got to show genuine interest, but you've got to be your genuine self present in whatever meeting is taking place. You're not going to be able to demonstrate empathy if people think, two-faced bastard, he's just playing a game, I don't believe a word he says. Empathy has left the room at that point in time. It's a good idea to avoid assumptions. We know what assume means. Break up assume. It makes an ass of you and me. Ass, you, me. Avoid assumptions, because that sends you down stereotypes, it sends you down prejudgment, and it stops you from being open to where the other person is coming from, because you've already formed a view, and that's it. So don't do that too much. A really good tip is learn from the best. If you see people locally, in your own family, in your own business, in your community, or on the world stage, you see people who are able to connect with and hold an audience, they will be using, amongst the other box of tricks, empathic skills. Study them, learn what they do. People you admire, learn what they do and try and distill bits of that and use it yourself. Experiment with it, make it all work. Other things you can do are exercises in mindfulness, in meditation, in reflective learning, in seeking constructive feedback. All of these things stop you being an island and have you reaching out to others, either to support them or to have them support you, or to be in a mutual support zone. If you build your empathic skills, you will minimize the risk of conflict, you will maximize the opportunity of resolving conflict, and you will make more sense of your family business. If you found this useful, please like, please subscribe, and if you know other people who get some benefit, please get the word out. We're trying to create a bit of a community here based on knowledge. Nobody has to go this path alone. So I hope you've enjoyed and found value in today's session. Jon Kenfield, Family Business Solutionist, signing off. Please come back next week. Bye.